Hi everyone, I am Lorna and you're watching Accidentally Awesome with ADHD. And I'm continuing on from last week where I did a video about what you can do if you can't get assessed for ADHD. Because for some people there are a lot of barriers to managing this. That could be money, it could be waiting lists, you may not have someone near you who can actually diagnose you. Whatever the reason is, oh, look at my hair today. Um, yeah, there's a lot of reasons why you're either delayed in diagnosis or just simply can't get in to see one. So I'll link that up here and you can have a look at that. So today I want to talk to you, if you're lucky enough to get a diagnosis, how you can prep for the assessment. So let's crack on and talk about that. So I feel there's two sides to this. So there's pre-assessment preparation and preparation to be assessed. Now this will hopefully make some sense to you as I chatter on. So pre-assessment, I think one of the first things I would say is if you have a choice in who your practitioner is, and not everybody does, but if you do have a choice in who is actually going to be doing the assessment for you, then do your research. You don't want to be stuck with someone who is, although they can assess you for ADHD, may not think that, may not be particularly sympathetic to adults with ADHD. They may not be particularly sympathetic to women who think they have ADHD. There's many practitioners out there that would tell you that you're depressed, anxious, bipolar, any number of other things before they would actually say you have ADHD. So I would suggest to reach out to your local ADHD community if you can. And as I've said before, check Facebook out for groups. There's heaps of them out there. And ask them for recommendations in your local area. They've been through the process. They know who's out there. They know who's good, bad, or indifferent. So listen to your tribe. They are the ones who can help you figure out who is the best person for you to talk to. Now, the next thing I would say is when you're approaching your assessment is think about what you struggle with in your day-to-day life. ADHD has many symptoms, so make sure you look at them and research them and think about the ones that really impact you. Then, I know we're not good at doing this, but write them down. Write down what your day-to-day struggles are, and then write down the impact that has on your life. So, for example, for me, one of my biggest struggles was procrastination. And I write for a magazine and I have monthly deadlines. Yeah, that's a great idea for somebody who is a professional procrastinator. So I would struggle every single month, not only to source my stories, but even when I had sourced them and I'd started writing them in my head, I would struggle to actually type them up. And then I would struggle to speak to our photographer to get her to go out and take the professional photographs. And then I would struggle to make sure everything was done and tied up in a nice bow and presented beautifully to my editor prior to deadline day. So that was one of my biggest problems. For you, it could be procrastination as well. It could be your masking leaves you feeling depleted at the end of the day, that you have to pretend to be this neurotypical person. It could be that you do suffer from anxiety and depression, and perhaps that has came about because you've had to suppress these ADHD problems that you have. Whatever your struggle is, it's your struggle. Write them down. Take your time in doing this. You don't need to do it all in one go, because it can be quite confronting to actually think about how this affects you. And then list what impacts those problems have for you. You could find that your practitioner will bring up your childhood. Many of them do. I know I certainly had that brought up in mine. So again, I would say go back and do the same thing about your struggles now. Think about what it was like in your childhood. Where did you struggle? Did you struggle to sit still in class? Were you the person that was always talking? Were you the daydreamer? Did you struggle in social situations? Were you bullied? A lot of us are. We may exceed in our studies in childhood. We may be really smart, which many of us are, and do really well at school, but the social side of it was a nightmare. Or you could be one of those kids that work your butt off to just get average results back because your brain doesn't function the way neurotypical brains function. And all of these are worth considering because these things can have knock-on behaviours to our adulthood. So what happens in your childhood can still impact you as an adult. And they're going to want to know that. Some of them may want report cards if you have them. I wasn't asked for them, but I mean, I was nearly 50. I was living on the other side of the world from where I grew up. I couldn't produce these if he was giving me $1 million. It just wasn't going to happen. So that's another way of getting prepared, just for you, even just to have those notes sitting there. They might not ask for them. And make sure you get your referral sorted out. If you need a referral from your GP, don't do what I did and go the day before your assessment to get your referral. Yeah, what's going to happen if your GP is not sympathetic and doesn't give you one? Yeah, then you're up shit creek, as they say. And I guess the last one for pre-assessment is check and see if you need to do anything for your assessment. You may need to fill out forms. You may need to get your referral in early. They may have extra paperwork that they want from you. You may need to reply to an SMS, a text, saying that you'll be at the appointment. You may have to check your emails if it's a telehealth one and you're going to be doing it over like a Zoom-like idea. I know how hard this is for us, especially if you're pre-diagnosis. But believe me when I say if you try and do this or get someone to help you do this, it'll make your assessment run that little bit smoother, take that little bit of anxiety away, and hopefully make you feel a bit more comfortable on the day. But if it doesn't, if you don't do all of these things, look, don't worry about it. We're getting assessed for ADHD. I mean, really. If you have everything perfect, then, or if you don't have everything perfect and you're being assessed for ADHD, it's really not a surprise to the practitioner who's looking at what you're doing. Now, assessment day is here and you are probably absolutely pooping in your pants. We do that, yeah. I was stressed out. Anybody else I know that was been getting assessed was stressed out. And it's like, what if I fail? You can't fail. You can't fail this. This is an assessment of you. You can't fail at being you. Yeah, just be you. Be you. That's who they're wanting to see, the real, authentic you. So don't mask your behaviour, crazy hair. If you need to fidget, fidget. If you need to move about, say to them, I'd like to move about. If you need for them to repeat things, then ask. The way I was diagnosed, and many of us are, was a questionnaire, and there was like five options. And I just spoke to my psychiatrist on Friday and we went through it again and I still couldn't tell you what they were. But I was so intent on listening to what he was saying, I wasn't actually paying attention to him, if you understand what I'm meaning. And I had to ask and say, look, sorry, what were the answers again? And I think it was like often and sometimes and well, whatever. But don't be shy about asking. You want to, make sure you're giving this your best shot. It is an expensive thing to do. So if you have to answer questions like that, which you probably will, because I think that's part of everybody's assessment, ask. Ask them to repeat the question, ask them to repeat how you're meant to answer for these things. This hair's so distracting. Yeah, so, and that's part of you being ADHD and not masking your behaviour or try and pretend that you're neurotypical, because you're not, or you don't think you are. And don't minimise your struggles. Don't play them down. They want to know what it's like on a difficult day. They want to know what you can cope with and what you really find hard. So don't minimise what you're going through. For example, I nearly failed my degree because of my procrastination. So it's not just been in my job, it's going way back. I knew what I wanted to do for my dissertation, my thesis. I had it all worked out in my head, and I just could not do that stage of going and talking to the lecturer who was supporting me through it. So I started late. I finished the day it was handing in. But this was back in the day where you had to print off your stuff and give it to them, and the printers in the computer lab at university were overloaded with people like me. So I didn't get to hand in my thesis until the Monday. So they didn't fail me on it because I'd passed the work, but I was downgraded because it was late, even just by a day. So that is a huge thing. So don't minimise it. And if you've got stories like that, bring them up. Let them see how much it has impacted you. And hopefully you will be, once you've had the assessment, you've gone through all of this, hopefully your psychiatrist or health practitioner will tell you there and then. If you have ADHD, they might tell you if you have combined, hyperactive, inattentive, whatever. And yes, you might even get your medication prescribed to you there and then. And that's great. Assessment done, you can go on your merry way. But I have one suggestion for you to bear in mind for after your assessment's finished and you have either left the office or switched off the call. Don't be surprised if you get emotional. You might really, really want to have this assessment and be thrilled to know that you're ADHD, as I was. But then all of these thoughts can come in, all of these emotions come in, and you might feel emotional. You might have a cry. Nothing wrong with that. You might feel angry that you've been denied this diagnosis for so long. You might not know how you feel. And you know what? That's totally cool as well. So however you feel, don't worry about it. But if you do get big emotions coming in, let them ride out. You'll be okay in a couple of days if that's the case. And one last thing I wanted to point out to you, because this is something that I laughed about. So I got my assessment. I was thrilled. I was really, really happy with it. I got my medication. I quickly zoomed out to the pharmacy and got it because I was that excited. And then, I was taking it for a couple of weeks, a month or so. And I was surprised that I still had ADHD. So your diagnosis, and if you get medication, they don't take it away. It's still there, guys. You're still going to do your crazy oversharing at times. You're still going to be procrastinating somewhat. You need to learn the skills that help you deal with your ADHD. So yeah, you might be taken by surprise and realise that you still have some of these issues going on, because they're not actually going to go away. It's not a magic wand that makes it disappear into the ether and vanish forever. So I hope this has been helpful for you. You might need to listen to this one again, and if you do, then that's absolutely fine. Like I say, sometimes it takes a little bit of time for us to get things into our heads. But in the meantime, I'll say cheerio just now. And if you remember, hit the like, hit the subscribe to my channel, please. It helps a lot. And I will speak to you guys soon.